That's Jimmy Stein. I'm Clint Lamb, and this is the Cover Crimson YouTube channel. Jimmy, first of all, got a little bit of an announcement to make because you're going to be joining us here at Cover Crimson every Monday and Wednesday for a game recap and a game preview that everybody will be able to see. You'll still be doing all your stuff at Locked On. That's not changing whatsoever. You and Luke do a phenomenal job just adding a little bit more Jimmy to our days, which I don't think anybody's upset about at this point. But, first of all, we're thrilled to have you aboard. You bring fantastic analysis. I know that everybody's really excited to have you kind of make this a regular thing with us.
I am super excited. When the opportunity came up, that was a quick yes. I love doing shows, especially with Clint, but the company's great. Fantastic people all throughout the company, but the opportunity to do shows with Clint, I'm never saying no to that. I enjoy the conversation as much or more as everyone that listens, and I feel like I take away stuff too, and just an honor, man. So happy to do it twice a week throughout football season. Then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I feel like I come away from these conversations. Sometimes I feel differently about some things. Sometimes I feel like I have a better grasp. And it's not only what you bring to the table from like the points that you make, but also what you pull out of me as far as just this thought. You start thinking about things in a little bit of a different light. And I just think you've always brought out the best version of me. So I'm definitely thrilled to be the part of this with you and have you aboard. Let's talk about Alabama, Louisiana-Monroe, because after a rough week one, a lot of panic, a lot of disappointment, there's only so much excitement that you can take away from a game like this. We have no idea fully what 73-0 means for Alabama. We really don't. But I will say everything that they probably needed to do or could have done to maybe let fans know things might actually be okay, they did that in this game, or to the extent that you possibly can. What are some of your kind of initial reactions, whether it be after the game? Has anything changed as you've kind of like let that adrenaline and excitement die down? Like, how are you feeling about this team through 2 weeks of the season, I guess is the better question.
Well, forget the score. Forget the 73-0, although we're going to come back to that because that is a significant story. But forget the 73-0. What I think Alabama fans should be excited about in terms of the takeaway from Louisiana-Monroe is, what did we ask for? Fire, energy, juice, a team excited about playing football, a team ready to live up to its potential, a team that's ready to fight, to prove themselves. We saw all of that. We saw all of it in spades. I mean, it was clear that was a team excited about playing football, made plays on both sides of the ball, complete team performance, offense great, defense great, special teams great. Everything was full of juice and energy and emotion, all the things we asked to see. Had Alabama won that game 31-7, but showed the exact same emotion and willingness to compete and swinging back and looking good on both sides of the ball, I'd be saying the same thing. But now get to the score. There is something to read into it, just like there's something to read into Florida State scoring 77 this weekend. There's something to read into it. If it was nothing, the people that really diminished this, it's just Monroe people, Alabama hasn't won a game by 73 points since 1951. I mean, Nick Saban wasn't beating Louisiana-Monroe and teams like Monroe 73-0 every week. As a matter of fact, some of these games you almost had to sweat out or didn't feel you played well at all. It is a thing to beat any FBS team the way Alabama did. Does it mean that, go ahead and remake those reservations in Miami for the national championship game? Of course not. Of course it doesn't mean that. But what it does mean is the things we're asking for were there, and Alabama won the game in extremely impressive fashion. What does it mean going forward? I don't know. Just like after week one, what did that mean going forward? I don't know. Alabama clearly has a little bit of, Jekyll and Hyde going on. But, I mean, welcome to college football. I don't know who doesn't or who won't. I mean, for instance, anybody out there thinks South Florida is really going to finish 12-0? I don't. And I think their 2 wins are as impressive as anybody's in the country, beating a ranked Boise and a ranked Florida in back-to-back weeks. But they're not finishing 12-0. I just think Alabama fans should be relieved that this team is full of energy and juice. And when they come to compete and they play well, they're very good. And we'll go from here.
Yeah, I mean, they fly around to the football. They made more plays defensively. I think the type of offense they were playing, it lended itself to being able to do that a little bit more, get downhill, not as much east-west, a laterally moving offense. But yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you where it's like, you got to 73 because you're trying to get 3 quarterbacks experience. 52, I think, is what it was at the end of the third quarter. They put up 21 points in the fourth. That's trying to get Keelan Russell as much experience as you possibly can. Don't have him go out there and do what you did with Ty Simpson last year or what Ty Simpson had to do the year before, where he's turning around and handing the football off 90% of the time, and you're just running clock. Get valuable game reps while you're able to get valuable game reps. And that's what I like about it. Now, granted, ULM probably wasn't a big fan of it. Probably seems like it's running up the score. Alabama's trying to get better. And one of their weaknesses right now is inexperience at quarterback. And so they're taking every opportunity that they can to get Austin Mack experience. He came in kind of a surprise visit onto the field in the second quarter and then took over to start the second half and played really well. And then Keelan Russell got pretty much an entire quarter of action to kind of work through some things, get his feet wet. And I think Alabama's quarterback room is just a little bit better today than it was Friday as a result of this. So I was fine with it. I think it was important, and I think you saw the talent in that quarterback room. It's just, I mean, at this point, you can't sit here and say, what you're going to get out of Ty Simpson, 17 of 17 for 226 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, another touchdown on the ground. That's not going to be him every week. But he was a lot more confident. His ability to escape and make plays on the move was phenomenal. I mean, he made a couple of throws that were jaw-dropping, and a couple some of them were called back, by the way, due to penalty. But just from a confidence boosting standpoint, I think it was great for Ty. And I think from the experience that you got the other guys in that room, this, like I said, this quarterback room is better today than it was on Friday.
I like how I thought it was just really smart for the coaching staff to think, hey, if we get off to just a good start, we don't have to get off to 49-0. If we get off to a good start, let's put in Austin Mack with the game not decided so he can play with the ones. I mean, that's the value, because there is some value in the garbage time snaps. There's some value in that, but not real true value. This was real true value. This was Austin Mack playing with the ones in a game that was not over, when Monroe was still out there with their ones trying to get back in the game best they can. I thought it was really smart to pick their spot, because who knows if you're going to get off to a start like that against Wisconsin. You certainly can't assume so against Georgia and when the SEC games start. It was smart to pick this game as, hey, this is one we can play Austin Mack early and maybe play Keelan a lot of the second half. But it's got to go well first. Who knows if we'd have seen Austin Mack at all if this game is 10-7 in the second quarter. Maybe you don't. I don't know. I think they were pretty adamant that they would have liked to, but the team got off to a great start. It allowed for it, and Austin Mack's gonna be better for it. And one of my favorite stats, Clint, from this game is that this was the first time in, I think, 7 years that Alabama's had 3 quarterbacks throw a touchdown pass in the same game. The last time it happened, the 3 Alabama quarterbacks were Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones in 2018. Let's just hope, as Alabama fans, that we're still comparing this quarterback room of Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, and Keelan Russell to the Hurts, Tua, Mack QB room in 2018.
Yeah, that's, and really when you look at how things played out, like I know Keelan had one of his passes dropped. So, and I don't remember, was it Jack Samarco, if I'm not mistaken?
That sounds right. Yeah. Kind of falling off.
So, I mean, if you look at what he did from a completion percentage standpoint, he was, if you take away that drop, or, he completes that drop, then he's completing roughly, 83% of his passes. Austin Mack completed 80%, and Ty Simpson completed 100%. So they attempted 33 passes, and 4 of them hit the ground. that's solid. You know, I mean, I don't know that you would do much better going against Air, if I'm speaking candidly. And so that's why you got to say, you know, it was a impressive performance from the quarterbacks, and you got out of all of them what you needed to get out of them. It's just a matter of at first. So Austin Mack comes in the second quarter. Charlie Potter with Bama Online tweets that he had heard that this was in the plans all along. And he said that, you know, Ty Simpson's job is not threatened or in jeopardy, I think is the way that he put it, as a result of this. But when I first heard that, I was like, I don't know that I like that, because you go into the week pretty much saying, we're going to beat ULM. We're going to beat them bad enough where we can do this kind of thing. Don't like that mentality at all. But based off of what he said after the game, Kalen DeBoer, maybe it was more so, hey, here in the near future, if the opportunity presents itself and we're in a position where we can get Austin Mack some reps with the first team, we're going to try to do that, because they're trying to head some of this stuff off in case Ty, you know, if he has some more games like Florida State, or he's not progressing in some of the areas that he needs to, or there's an injury, you have to be prepared. And Austin Mack coming in cold, having never taken snaps, you know, any sort of meaningful snaps, that is not ideal, especially when he would be backed up by a true freshman at that point. So, you know, as I learned a little bit more about it, it wasn't necessarily that it was, hey, this week we're going to be able to do this. It was just whenever the opportunity in the next, you know, hopefully here in the near future, we're going to try to get Max some reps. And I like that, because a lot of these games and stuff the last couple of years, I mean, you blew out Mercer and teams like that, but a lot of them have been a lot closer than they were in the past. So your opportunity to kind of get to one of the things about that season in 2017 was all throughout that year, Alabama would be kicking the mess out of somebody. They're up, you know, I don't remember what that score was against Vanderbilt, with like 60 points against Vanderbilt. You're able to put in Tua early in the second half, let him get some work with the first team offense, operate the offense as he normally would. And by the end of the season, when you had to turn to him, that, you know, experience came in handy. If something similar happens, not saying a national championship and you're, you know, Austin Mack comes in and he's Tua, but I'm saying for whatever reason, if later on in the season you have to turn to Austin Mack for whatever reason, you will be very glad that he got all of these reps that you could possibly get him when the opportunities presented themselves. So I am actually, the more I've thought about it, this was a Saturday I was upset about it to an extent. Monday, I'm actually okay with it. I can wrap my mind around the reasoning behind it.
I had an initial negative reaction to it, to be honest. I mean, my initial negative reaction was just about how, and now that I know more about, I'm with you, Clint. I mean, initial negative reaction. Now I'm like, I think this was really smart, because my reaction was more like, you know, you're coming off the loss. Ty wasn't great. And now you're telling Ty in practice, we're going to play the other guy.
True.
I don't like that, because you need a confident quarterback or it's not going to work. And I'm not sure that helps your quarterback's confidence when he loses, doesn't play great, and then you're telling him on Monday, we're going to play the other guy, sort of no matter what. So that's the part I wasn't good with. But the way the game played out, and Ty's quotes after the game and speaking to the media, where Ty was legitimately excited about Austin Mack playing well, and Keelan playing well. There's clearly some level of brotherhood in that QB room, which, trust me, is not always the case anywhere, much less Alabama, all over, even in the NFL. QB rooms are competitive. Ask a veteran quarterback how much he's doing to tutor the young quarterbacks privately, and you'll get a why am I tutoring a kid who's going to take my livelihood away from me? I mean, you get that in the NFL, honestly. But there's a brotherhood in this QB room that I think is going to serve Alabama well, and it's going to pay off in the long run. And I don't know that we'll see Austin Mack or Keelan Russell this week against Wisconsin. It would be great, because I feel if you do, this is going to be a little bit more traditional. Hey, we'll put them in once the game's decided.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, where, you know, these are the types, I mean, nothing against Louisiana-Monroe, but, you know, I guess Wisconsin, I feel like that this would be kind of an ideal situation to get these guys some reps. But as you say, that opportunity has to be presented, because there's been way too many times where they've been heavy favorites going into a game and they end up coming out flat. I'm hoping, like, it's kind of like one of those things where You do something and you're rewarded for it. All week they were laser focused, put in all the energy, all the effort, and they were rewarded by playing, I wouldn't say flawless football game, but it was pretty close to being as flawless as you could get. I'm hoping that that's like positive reinforcement. I'm hoping that, from a game planning standpoint, and trust me, we'll get to this here in just a second, but I think with Ryan Grubb, a lot of people are like, they're desperate right now for some fireworks and fan excitement with what happened in week one. So they're, emptying the clip as far as some of these play designs. I think it's layering or stacking. I think it is putting stuff on tape that not only you're making future opposing defenses prepare for, but you're also able to put wrinkles on top of that maybe they prepare for one thing, you present that look, and then you hit them with something else that they're not expecting. This is the cat and mouse game that gets played between coaching staffs throughout the season. And I think this is a little bit of that. But what it did do was it showed how in control Ryan Grubb was. Great flow, great feel for the game. Obviously, a lot of what you're going to call is going to work because of who you're playing. That's just the truth of the matter. But at the same time, I love some of the wrinkles that they're putting in. I love this kind of going, 4 wide, and you have a guy like Jeremy Bernard who's kind of a stocky build. You can put him in the backfield and even give him the football, make him your running back for that play, and it's not absurd. But you also have that another receiving threat where you can go empty easy, present easy pictures for Ty Simpson when you need to, but it's not, it's not too telling, I guess is the way to put it. And you probably will see some of that when Jam Miller returns, where they'll split him out wide, go empty, doing the same thing, but also bring him to the backfield, motion him to the backfield. You'll see a lot of that. But I was really encouraged by, Ryan Grubb and the performance that he put forth, because I think that what we expected to see from this Alabama offense as far as diversity, different looks, things you got to prepare for, a lot of wrinkles off of that. I think we started to see some of those flashes against ULM.
Yeah, you hear a sports cliche is chess versus checkers. I think Ryan Grubb calling plays to beat Louisiana-Monroe, how are we going to, what plays are we going to call here in this situation to beat Monroe? That's checkers. But playing chess is, I'm going to put things on tape today that's going to waste our future opponent's time. And by that meaning showing them things, showing them formation, showing them plays that get the attention of future opponents that they literally work on during their game preparation for Alabama that we just simply don't use in the game against them. Now you're wasting their reps. There's only so many reps you get in practice a week for an opponent. When you waste those reps, that's a win. That's a win, right? So I do think that the Ryan Grubbs of the world can use games like this to not only show the expansiveness of the playbook, but make your opponent prepare for a lot, when in fact you don't really have too much of a plan to use that again against a certain opponent. For instance, you don't look ahead to Georgia, but Georgia's watching this tape.
Correct.
Georgia's watching this tape, and you can play some games there, right? So I think the Ryan Grubbs of the world do look ahead in that manner, because calling plays to beat Monroe isn't, that's checkers. I mean, let's be honest. It's nothing against Monroe. It's just, recruiting rankings sort of speak for themselves in terms of, who's got the upper hand when it comes to having the best players on the field in this game. So I think there was some element to that, because there was some new stuff out there. There was some new stuff or hints maybe of things to come. But I like to play calling. I do have a concern or two. I do, and I'll ask you about this. Running the ball, the overall numbers were pretty good. But when you break it down individually, AK Deer had a great game, primarily because of the home run he hit late, which was really cool, and I hope earned him some more snaps in the future, assuming he can block back there in the backfield. But AK Deer's numbers were good. Kevin Riley, who might be the biggest story 2 games into the season based on how we felt this summer, what the personnel would look like on the field. The fact that Kevin Riley has become RB1 might be the bigger story. But Kevin Riley's numbers were good. AK Deer's numbers are good. Rich Young, Daniel Hill, and Dre Washington, even in this game, their numbers collectively were pedestrian at best. So I do think running the ball is still a bit of an issue. And I think we need to see not just a greater commitment to it, but just executing it better. Because you're going to play games coming up where you can't just put it all on Ty. You're going to have to run the ball. And obviously, Kevin Riley, and when Jam Miller comes back, that's who you're going to be running it with. But I do think that it did stand out to me that I think between the three of them, I don't have the number right in front of me, but between the three of them, I think Rich Young, Daniel Hill, and Dre Washington, they averaged together right around 4 yards a carry, maybe even a hair less. Based on opponent, that's not great.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And it feels like right now, the offensive line still to me isn't probably getting enough push consistently. I still think that's a work in progress. It was great to see Jaden Roberts back out there. I do think he's created some movement. You saw a lot of moving parts. I mean, they gave Michael Carroll opportunities early in the game. I like some of what they did as far as lining Will Sanders as an extra blocker, kind of as an H back there. I mean, because he has the ability to get in space, lock in on a target, and get that guy blocked. And so, when he's got that athleticism and he's 300 plus pounds, why not in those goal line or short yardage situations put a guy like that out there that's just, more beef? It's kind of like the logic of putting Terrence Cody at fullback back in the day, except for, this guy's entire job is to get guys blocked. So he's a lot more comfortable doing it. And so, I mean, I like that. But, I think the reason that Kevin Riley is so successful right now relative to the others is because I think he brings a burst that just nobody else has. Jam Miller, I think, is pretty close, but Riley is easily the most explosive running back that Alabama has. And he's got a very lean build that, when the holes aren't always there, but he's able to squeeze through things that other guys simply aren't because he can get narrow, and there's this explosiveness where it's like he's getting to the second level of defense before you can even blink. And I think that is really what's allowed him to have success. But what's interesting is that in this game, he wasn't just a starter. He was a focal point because, 11 carries, led the team, had almost twice as many as the next guy, which was Richard Young with 6, but also 6 targets leads the team, 6 catches leads the team, and he finishes with over 100 total yards for this game. So 17 touches, no one else. I was looking at it. I think the next highest was Richard Young with 6 total touches outside of him. So almost 3X. That to me is noteworthy. I understand he's probably one of those guys where you play him further into the game because, he is, he's still young and you're trying to get him as many reps as possible. But if you look, there was a while where Dre Washington was the guy when they kind of started putting in that second, wave of players, and they actually gave him 5 carries in a pretty short amount of time. And then late it was AK Deer and he got 5 carries. So, they still went to other guys. It wasn't like he played for 4 quarters, and he was a massive part of the offense early on, him and Lotzeir Brooks, which we'll talk about Brooks here in just a minute. But, I think it was pretty telling. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, based off of how this offense is winning on the ground, and I think Jam Miller fits into that because of his burst and explosiveness, but I think he adds a little bit more than even Riley as far as power and being able to do a lot of different things. I can see why he was thriving in this offense pre-injury. It makes sense based off of Riley's success. Would it be nice if they could, let Richard or Daniel or maybe both get, something going and become a bigger part of the offense? Yes, but I'll go ahead and tell you right now, this is a coaching staff who has been willing to ride one player, 2 players. And so if you're getting the most out of your run game, which is helping you get the most out of your offense with just Jam Miller and just Kevin Riley, especially with you throwing the ball quite a bit, I'm not saying that Richard Young and Daniel Hill won't play at all. I'm just saying they'll probably play very minor roles, and the run game will essentially, outside of Ty Simpson's legs, which there's going to be a part of it for sure, it'll be more so funneled just through 2 guys. And I think that you talk about the explosiveness in the passing game and the potential there. I think between Jam Miller and Kevin Riley, there is an explosive element to this run game that can be there They've just kind of got to continue to tweak some things and get it right, but the flashes are already happening.
I can't wait to see Jam Miller in this offense with Ryan Grubb calling the plays. And I'm with you. I think we almost forget how good Jam is. Not great. He hasn't been great yet. But I think there's been reasons between starting out his career very young, learning to block, then splitting time, then having a quarterback who was the main run threat and not a running back, and then having most of the run plays be zone read option type stuff where the running back may or may not get the ball. I think there's all sorts of good reasons why he hasn't been great, but he has been good. And I would have used good to describe Justice Haynes. Justice Haynes last year was good. Was he great? No. He was good. But again, having the same issues Jam had. I would go this far about how excited I am about Jam. I think we've all seen what Justice Haynes is doing at Michigan. I mean, where he's racking up some numbers and looking really impressive. In a different world, it was Jam Miller that went to Michigan and Justice is here at Alabama. I'm not so sure Jam wouldn't be putting up the same numbers Justice is in that offense, doing what Michigan does. Such a great downhill running physical offense that's sort of made for that. What I'm saying is, if you think, boy, the best back left, I'm not so sure. I think Jam Miller and Justice Haynes were roughly about the same back, a year ago. And that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Jam Miller added to as kind of the power guy, added to Kevin Riley, who is a home run hitter. He hadn't hit a long one yet like AK Deer did, but it's coming. And like you said, I think you tweeted it. You just said so. I mean, he does a good job of getting skinny in that hole. It's funny about running backs. Not all of the holes up front are made big. Some of them are made small. And the ball's not heavy. I heard Nick Saban say one time, do you like big backs or small backs? I heard him say, I like good backs. I mean, I like them good. But, the ball's not heavy. The ball's not heavy and holes aren't tall or always big. I mean, you can do well with the right back. He doesn't have to be, Derrick Henry size. So I've been kind of shocked at the physicality of Kevin Riley, to be honest. I mean, I knew he had burst. I knew he had speed. You can see that from track times or his huddle tape. I mean, I knew he could run and had that burst. What has surprised me is his physicality between the tackles and the fact he don't go down easy. You better wrap the kid up. And I would vote. I would probably go Kevin Riley in terms of the personnel, in terms of what's the biggest surprise to you after 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that for sure. And, it's his ability to, he great feel as far as the feet, making sure he's staying high, getting his knees high, making sure all the mess happening around the ankles, whether that be, there was one play where it's a narrow hole. He's able to squeeze through it. But you also had, I think it was it Caden Proctor blocking down, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. His feet were right where the hole is, where that narrow crease is. And he's able to very instinctively get his feet over, make sure he doesn't get tripped up by that. But then a defender comes in, tries to tackle him. And his ability to break that first tackle on contact, I'm not saying he's running through guys. It's mostly, just the quickness in which he plays. When you're playing linebacker, there's a lot going on in front of you. So you're trying to sift through and find the football. And when there's just it's like a lightning strike, it just happens out of nowhere. You're turning to try to make a tackle because, he's on you very quickly. And then he's able to break those arm tackles and things like that, which makes him a very effective player. Very fun to watch. And, we knew the contact balance was there. That's a part of it. But just, yeah, he's been very effective in this offense. And I don't foresee – when Jam Miller gets back, I'll be curious to see if they kind of ease him in a little bit. Will it be like a line share right out of the gate, or they get him, if he is able to return against Wisconsin? I guess we'll know more after Kalen DeBoer's press conference if he's back at practice or expected to be tomorrow. They're off today, so it would be tomorrow. I'll be curious to see what is said about that. But I'm not. This run game isn't where it needs to be. I will put it that way, but you've also been without your starter, and it's flashing enough where I have hope for it as they continue to get more comfortable in this new style or new approach in how they operate. Let's talk about the receivers, though, because Ryan Williams did not play due to that concussion. I actually loved that they started Lotzeir Brooks in the slot. Rico Scott was the guy that I kind of just pegged, and I'm like, he's kind of an HZ option. He can play outside, inside, but, so can Jeremy Bernard. So I was wondering, okay, do they put Rico at Z? Do they put Bernard in the slot? Maybe they put Rico in the slot with keeping, because Bernard right now, it's almost like don't mess with anything you're doing with him because what he's doing is working. But that's something that instead it was Lotzeir Brooks, and I think he can play outside as well. He's 5'9", 191 pounds, but his ability to kind of go up and win those contested catches, very Jalen Waddle in that sense, where he's very, he's stocky, but definitely doesn't have a lot of length, but the athleticism and the willingness to go up and get it certainly brings that to the table. And his ability to create yardage after catch, the route running, the things you can do as far as kind of moving him around and manufacturing some touches for him. I just loved what I saw from him. And Jimmy, I want to get your thoughts on Ryan Williams, because that is another thing. I don't want anybody believing that Ryan Williams is on a fast track to the bench when he's back. I mean, it's crazy how he's played one game this year, and he went in one game from being considered widely one of the best returning players in all of college football to, he needs to see the bench. That is insane to me. He's still that player. I understand he didn't play great against Florida State. I think that it would be ideal if you could get a much higher percentage of his snaps outside like he was last year, move him around, continue to do that, get him some more snaps inside, but at the same time, putting him as your primary, slot guy. I understand the logic because Isaiah Horton is a pure X, or, he can play the Z, but you're going to play him outside 95% of the time. Jeremy Bernard, his best work right now is coming as kind of like that Z move receiver. He can handle some slot, and you're going to play him inside some, but I mean, with what he's doing, just allow him to keep doing what he's doing. That leaves Ryan Williams for the slot. I understand that, but I think, especially with Isaiah Horton, he's getting closer to being 100%, but he has been banged up to start the year. I liked the idea of when you go Horton and Bernard and Williams, have Williams in the slot most of the time. Also get Bernard some in there. But then also you can move Williams back to the X, which is what he played last year. You can take Horton off the field, have Bernard as your Z, because I don't think he's coming off the field much at all. And you could put Lotzeir Brooks as your pure true slot. And that way, maybe you could even 50-50 split it. Now, you're still going to see a lot of Rico Scott. I'm not, but he's not that dynamic playmaker, in my opinion, in the slot. So I just like what Brooks brings. And I think it's noteworthy that he got the start. I know that was a very long-winded way to talk, start this conversation about the receivers, but what are your thoughts on these guys and kind of how Ryan Williams fits in when he returns?
I could not agree more. I think you have an excellent breakdown there that again, causing me to think through my own thoughts and changing the way I think, but that was great. In one hand, it convinced me, look, Isaiah Horton's a really good player. I think he's going to be a pro football player, and what a great touchdown catch and all. I mean, Isaiah Horton's really good. I think Rico Scott's really good. But I can't help but think that right now, your best true lineup at wide receiver is Ryan and Germ outside with Brooks in the slot, because Ryan played outside last year and we saw him. Okay, now you're going into year two, is considered maybe the number 2 wide receiver in college football. He did really almost all that damage last year outside, where he's clearly most comfortable. Germ is most comfortable outside. Sure, they can play the slot because they're really good wide receivers, but they just seem most comfortable there. And we know Brooks is just a slot. That's what Brooks is, or at least out of the gate. Out of the gate, he's a slot. He's going to be like Ryan, like Germ. He'll be able to play all the spots eventually, but he just got here. And typically with freshmen, not always, but typically with freshmen, you teach them one spot because they're just learning the offense, and you confuse them if you try to say, hey, we need you to learn 3 wide receiver positions. I can't help but think that Ryan and Germ outside and Brooks in the slot might be Alabama's best lineup. But I hate diminishing Isaiah Horton and Rico Scott in that way, because I love them. I think they're very good players. And boy, this game really, you took Ryan out of the equation and you really showed your depth this weekend at that position. And the depth is what we thought it was. Isn't that a Dennis Green NFL thing? Or was it Dennis Green who said that? They are what we thought they were.
Yep.
that the depth showed out, because we didn't even, Ryan's out. Jalen Hale, I don't think, caught any balls. But we know he's good, and we know Ryan is potentially as good as there is. But they still, as a group had a great game. Lotzeir Brooks is fantastic. The fact that he missed so much of fall camp and is still able to start game 2 of his college career. And, we'll talk about London Simmons and the defense later, but boy, it was a rough weekend for you star watchers. And I say that because I'm a stars guy myself. I'm a rankings guy myself. I just think people take it too seriously and ascribe something to it, which isn't true. And the fact of the matter is, Alabama signed one of the great recruiting classes in the country, and the first true freshmen to start games were 3 stars, London Simmons and Lotzeir Brooks, who were not the 5 stars and the 4 stars. And we're getting the 5-star contribution out of Dejon Lee and Michael Carroll, and they're proving that they were worthy of showing up with a wagon full of stars. But Lotzeir Brooks and London Simmons were the first true freshmen to start. They're 3 stars. If Alabama picked up a 3-star commitment today, what's going to happen on those message boards? People are going to boo. Why? You just saw what happens when this staff is evaluating players into their system. It works. You should believe in these guys and not poo-poo it. But boy, Brooks was great. Depth of wide receivers great. And again, I think you helped talk me into the feeling that the best lineup is Ryan and Jerm outside with Brooks in the slot, though I deserve, a whipping for putting Isaiah Horton and Rico Scott on the bench.
Well, here's how I'm kind of viewing it. When you put that on paper, I completely agree. I think the most dynamic trio that you're going to have is going to include Lotzeir Brooks in the slot. And because we know what Ron Williams can be on the outside. And if you're having to take this massive step down from Ron Williams as an X to Ron Williams as an H or a slot, then overall you still might be getting effective play across the board. But you've got one of the biggest stars, or was expected to be one of the biggest stars in all of college football, and you're playing him out of position. So, that's where it's like, okay, you move him back out there and you get the guy you were expecting. That's going to elevate everything. But you're also putting another dynamic player on the field in Lotzeir Brooks, who I think is only going to get better. But I agree that it's telling. This guy missed a lot of fall camp, and yet he is on the field getting a start over Rico Scott, over Cole Adams, over Jalen Hill. And part of that is what was needed based off of Ron Williams was playing in the slot, and he's out. So in order to keep that going, who's our best slot option? Right now, it's Lotzeir Brooks, in my opinion, with the way that he's come on. I think he proved that, and I think that's the reason why he was out there. Here's what I will say. They specifically went out of their way. They didn't feel like they had enough size and length last year with their group. So they go out of their way. A guy who wasn't even in the transfer portal immediately gets connected to Alabama before he even enters. Let's be honest. And granted, yeah. And it could be that him and Ty Simpson are just really close. And that was where the push was coming from. And Horton was like, hey, if I enter, will you guys take me? And Ty's like, my guess would be yes. Yeah, you might say, let me ask, or you might just say, I don't know, maybe. Yes. It could be a situation like that. But either way, Rome Odunze, he had that size, that length, and that was an important element of the offense. So if they covet that a lot, because where I think Derek Meadows fits into this picture is because Isaiah Horton was not all that healthy in week 1, Derek Meadows ended up playing more snaps than we were anticipating with, in a game that was always in doubt. And it's because Alabama covets that size and length that can also stretch the field vertically, and Derek Meadows provides some of that. So that's why I think it's always going to have a very important role. It could reach a point. Maybe Isaiah Horton's technically the starter, but maybe you're seeing a lot of Lotzeir Brooks, and they shuffle the wide receivers when, he's out there, and that way, Ron Williams can get his action in the slot, but also he can get his action, 50% snap share, maybe on the outside, kind of divide it pretty evenly. But, I think right now, people like me, we look at this wide receiver room going into the season, so many good guys, so many good players. And there's no way that you can leave this guy out. And there's no way you can leave this guy out. He's got to be a part of it. Most teams, it's 4 or 5 man wide receiver rotation. You might hit 6 every once in a while. I know Nick Saban did it, especially later in his career. I think it's because nobody was really stepping up and just saying, I'm a guy that you don't need to take off the field. Jerome Bernard does not need to come off the field, unless it's a breather every once in a while. Ryan Williams, if he gets back to being Ryan Williams, he doesn't need to come off the field very much. And so, but you've got more guys that you need to get on the field. And so that's where it can kind of get shaky. Right now, the way I would review the wide receiver room, I think it is 5 players. I think it is Isaiah Horton, Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams, Rico Scott, and Lotzeir Brooks. And then if you're missing that size length element, if Isaiah Horton has to miss any more time or he's still not 100% or whatever, maybe Derek Meadows gets involved. You would have thought that it was Jalen Hill. Apparently, Hill we just haven't seen a lot of him. Cole Adams, we haven't seen a lot of him. He didn't play any snaps on offense against Florida State. And so those are great guys. They'd be starting for a lot of teams. The fact that they are where they are, I don't think it's worth taking off some of these other players to get them snaps. So that's how I would view the wide receiver room right now. But if you had to start working some of those guys, they can, I still think they would get effective play out of them. But Jalen Ibakwe is a part of that group too, by the way. But for whatever reason, Hill probably still getting his feet back under him after the major injury. Cole Adams had a season-ending injury. And he's also probably not the most dynamic, very reliable punt returner, though. Give him credit for that. But then, Jalen Ibakwe is still learning the position. So all talented, all could contribute, but I think that 5-man rotation makes the most sense right now.
Couldn't agree more. And I hate myself for even bringing this up, but the fact of the matter is this is a position where Alabama's got more players than snaps. So I do think the transfer portal will be interesting to monitor there when the season's over in terms of who's not happy with the snaps they're getting. Because most of these guys can come back. Only Germ is out of eligibility. The rest of the guys can come back. Zay Horton is draft eligible, but he's got to obviously put up some production before that would happen. I'm just saying that this is a position where you've got more good players than snaps to give. And it's fair to be a little nervous about the portal because I don't want to lose any of these guys. They're all good. Even I agree 100% with Clint who the best 5 are right now, and that's who should be out there. But there's some good. Hale's good. Adams is good. Bach's going to be great. Derek Meadows is going to be great. I mean, these are good football players. I hate that they won't get as many snaps as we would like to see them, but at the same time, this is a dog-eat-dog world. You've got to play your best players. I talked about a lot last week. One thing that frustrated me about Florida State is a bad play would happen, and I look out there, and in my opinion, it's not the 11 best players on the field. And we just lost the game because, in my opinion, in part, because we didn't have our 11 best players on the field. So I get frustrated about playing so many because I don't think it's in the program's best interest, but there's also the portal. So it's kind of a two-edged sword.
That's really interesting. And I can't say that I disagree with that. I mean, when you go out there and you start breaking down some of the biggest plays, it's like, yeah, it's probably because the best 11 went on the field. You love Dijon Lee. You love him to death. I think he's going to be a heck of a player. Should he have been out there for a key 3rd and 11? Probably not, especially that early. And Gus Malzahn noticed it, and Tommy Castellanos noticed it, and they took advantage.
Got guys in the box. It's what they're doing in the box, by the way. That's their job in the box.
That's right.
They put in another guy. That's not 1. That's not 2 at corner. That's this 5 guy. Go with him.
I mean, and I got to be honest, if that play doesn't happen, I'm not saying Alabama wins that game. They got hit right in the mouth. And I still don't think we know fully how Alabama's going to respond to getting hit in the mouth. I guess we'll find out, maybe Wisconsin this weekend. I'm not going to discredit anybody moving forward. There's no reason to say, nah, it's not going to happen. They're going to be fine. But I'll say the safest assumption, that the highest likelihood is Georgia and Athens, especially after losing to Alabama last year in Kalen DeBoer's first season. I got a feeling they're going to be ready to go, and they're going to hit you in the mouth. So we'll find out a lot more about this Alabama team once that happens. But, they're working through some things. They're figuring it out. I don't know. I probably wouldn't be tinkering as much. It's a philosophy that they've had. Hey, these guys, if they've earned our trust in the preseason, it's kind of like you don't know if you've got a superstar sitting on the bench. If Jaden Roberts would have gotten action, before it took 2 guys ahead of him getting injured, and they would have said, let's put him in the game and just see what happens. Yeah. Maybe they would have got that right guard position solidified a lot sooner and things would have looked a little bit better. I don't remember exactly how the beginning of that. Yeah. I know. I mean, I don't know if that was
2 guys getting hurt before they went with Jaden, which is a head scratcher. Even Bray Hubbard, only played because of injury, really. So I get wanting to look at guys you're excited about in the games. I get that, but you've got to pick your spot smartly and just a whole willy-nilly. Hey, if this guy's playing as good as the starter, I don't know, maybe their trust is easier to gain than mine, which is a silly thing to say. But I would have liked to have seen that deep ball to Squirrel White again with Xavier Brown or Damani Jackson over there, and not Dejon Lee, who I think might be one day a first-round draft pick. I mean, don't say I'm not excited about Dejon Lee. I'm just not as excited about, you know, guys that are twos, and by that I mean guys that aren't the starters in the game that early, when the game's yet to be, when Alabama doesn't even have a real advantage yet.
Well, I mean, and it would have been Brown, who I like better for that matchup, because Damani right now he's playing a lot of boundary corner, and that was to the wide side of the field. But yeah, I completely agree with that. And here's the thing: I wonder how much of, I'm sure this coaching staff, I'll tell you, I know 100% that they felt really good about this team going into the season, really good.
Yeah.
You go into this year against a team coming off of a 2-10 record with a bunch of transfers. I mean, how quickly are they going to be able to get all that stuff worked out, get some continuity, some comfortability as far as working alongside one another, new play callers on both sides of the football. Probably wasn't expecting any sort of polished product. And then your offense immediately just drives down the field, takes a lot of clock. I mean, it wasn't like there was a bunch of explosives, but just kind of, it's like, man, even if we're not getting the explosives, we're able to inch our way down this field and score a touchdown, and looked pretty good doing it. Maybe that confirms this belief of, yeah, we've got this one in the bag. We can go ahead and throw Dejon Lee out there on the first drive and in a key moment. And because it wasn't like you're just throwing anybody out there. This is a guy who had been proving it in practice. He had earned an opportunity. So it wasn't like it was just, hey, what all freshmen we got? Let's go ahead and put in the second team guys here on this first drive because we're that confident. So it's not like that. It's just you got a 5-star stud who had been doing some really special things in practice. And you're like, hey, let's get him out there. And it just so happens that it was I think if that play doesn't happen, it could have ended up being a much different game, because I think Alabama, I don't think they were expecting Tommy Castellanos to be able to hit that shot. And I think it changed the way that they played a little bit. It put them on their heels. And it's like Nick Saban said, after that game, they didn't handle the adversity well. They didn't respond well. They came out with energy. They, marched down the field. They scored a touchdown. But then as soon as Florida State countered, it's like, we're saying things as last year. And then it's like this, the energy died down. The sidelines was weird. Former quarterbacks are standing over there saying there's just a weird vibe on the sidelines. Like things just went wrong. But anyways, we do need to talk about the defense. But yeah, just the offense, I do like where it's trending. The offensive line, Caden Proctor's got to stop getting beat inside. I get he's a bigger dude. I get that he's trying to compensate as far as getting into his pass sets, and he doesn't want to have
that left. He's worried about that left foot and not enough about the right foot.
Correct. That's exactly right, Jimmy. And so, I mean, he got smoked one time inside. And granted, he can, he needs to continue to get better. Hopefully he does. I'll be curious to see what happens with that Wilkin Formby, Michael Carroll thing on the right side. I don't think it's everybody's saying that Michael Carroll's about to start. Maybe that happens, but I don't think that's been solidified yet.
Maybe a rotation kind of thing coming up, because the staff's not afraid to do that. They did it last year at right guard. I could see them splitting reps. I don't think it's going to be a situation where Formby's on the bench or Michael Carroll's a starter. That would surprise me a little bit, but it's encouraging to see the staff. The staff didn't put Carroll out there with the rest of the backups. Carroll was out there pretty quick, but again, the game was already in hand. I mean, at that point too, I didn't have nearly as much problem this week with the substituting, and of course, it helps when you're up.
Well, I mean, and with that Michael Carroll situation, it's like they did it last year, or they at least planned to, at right tackle, until Caden Proctor goes down in a freak injury accident right before the first game and warm-ups of the first game. And now it's like Elijah Pritchett's got to go over to the left side. Now Wilkins, exclusively the right tackle. Before, we were going to see a platoon. We did see a platoon at times throughout last season. And now, Wilkin Formby's kind of in the Elijah Pritchett role, where it's like you're the more veteran guy, you're the starter, you're going to get first crack, but depends on what Michael Carroll does with his increased opportunities. And what it also does is it puts Michael Carroll out there getting meaningful snaps, where if you have to turn to him permanently because something happens with Wilkin Formby, you feel a lot more comfortable because he's been pressing action a little bit, and he is survived and taken some of those lumps and seen some things. And so I like how they're doing that as well. I think that if you're getting effective play out of Michael Carroll, you keep doing it. That's only going to help the depth of your offensive line as the season progresses. But defensively, I do feel like guys flying around a lot more. Still would like to see Bray Hubbard be a little bit more consistent as far as the tackling. but he was flying around a lot more, had a lot of energy, and he can kind of get around. And I love that they're still doing that 3-2-6 where you have you're bringing in that 6 defensive back, and then you're playing Bray Hubbard as kind of a dime linebacker. I think that, and that's only in those, like, it's not 3rd and 7s even.
No.
It's 3rd and like 10 plus.
3rd and forevers.
Yeah. So, I like that. You get some speed, some athleticism. Justin Jefferson can fly around. Thought he played really good. Definitely played a lot more with his hair on fire, but it's amazing what happens when you allow him to cut loose a little bit and he's not thinking too much. And I will say the guys did look a little bit more comfortable as far as mugging up on the line of scrimmage and then stepping back and then having to plug holes. Still think there are some issues there, but obviously you're going to look better with that against Louisiana-Monroe. We'll have to see how that's going to continue. Thought James Smith played phenomenal. He played like it was a Michigan type of performance from the bowl game last year, where he was flat out dominant, a massive problem. And I'm excited to see him continue to grow. Alabama needs him to be that guy, especially with, some of these players on the mend. They need James Smith to be an absolute dude, and he at least was that in this game. Hopefully you're getting Tim Keenan back, but you got some of those young guys, London Simmons, Isaiah Faga, both of them a lot of reps at that nose. Just, what are your thoughts on this Alabama defense? Obviously a big step forward from week 1 to week 2, but just what were some of the things that you noticed?
Well, first of all, when you beat somebody 73-0, all the attention's going to be on the 73, because normally it's on the nothing, but you don't often have 73 on the other side of the hyphen.
Good point. Can't get lower than 0, right?
That's right. That's right. But you can go way up on the other side of the hyphen. And that's why I think the offense getting all this attention rightfully, but it's such a shame because it sort of overshadows the fact that the defense pitched a shutout. And not only did they pitch a shutout, Clint, I think they held Monroe to around 150 yards or less, which is literally nothing. Monroe only ran a handful of plays in Alabama territory. I mean, never in the red zone. I don't know that they ever reached the red zone, but I think they were only over the 50 just a small handful of times. You just gave up nothing to that group. And I know it's Monroe, but hey, they scored 14 on Auburn a year ago. They racked up 311 yards rushing against an outmanned opponent, in week 1. I just think I give the defense an A. I mean, if last week was an F, this was an A. Now, I know people are going to say it's Monroe. Yeah, true. But all you can do is shut out who's in front of you. And I like the juice and the energy. And I liked how they did empty the bench, but largely after the game was in hand, when they went to the deeper parts of the bench. And so many of those guys played great. A special shout out, James Smith, I agree. Best or second best game of his career so far. You need James Smith to have taken that big step this year. Every player, most every player gets better year to year, but you need a handful of guys to take a big leap. And James Smith, I think Alabama was very dependent on. James, we need a big leap from you. And he showed Saturday that he might be there. I mean, in terms of making that big leap from solid contributor to playmaking difference maker, because that's the kind of player he can be. I thought he was fantastic. And London Simmons, who didn't necessarily make a lot of plays, but just the fact that he's the option now. And I know it took a couple of players getting hurt for him to play. I mean, obviously he wouldn't be out there if Keenan was there, wouldn't have been out there if Beeman was there. It was the next option. But the fact that he was the next option is amazing, because you did have other players they could have played, but they went with him. He's clearly somebody that Freddie Roach and the defensive staff is very excited about long term. So that's great. The linebackers were better. Funny how playing with confidence and juice, Deontay Lawson looked healthier. I mean, I'm not saying that, we made too much of how he looked in week 1, but playing with confidence and juice, he looked quicker. He looked faster. He played okay. Justin Jefferson, great bounce back games. Honestly, I thought Justin was pretty bad week 1. I bet he thought so too. He was good. He was good in week 2. DBs, fine. Great group back there. One other guy I want to give a shout out to, because I loved him in recruiting, and I was almost not alone on an island, but he was not a headline maker in his class, but I love Dre Kirkpatrick. And boy, in his limited opportunities, he had his fingerprints all over everything. He's causing turnovers, big hits. I don't even care about the targeting. What I cared about was playing with physicality. He did that. Caused a turnover, just always around the ball. And I think as the season goes on, as he gains more and more experience, I want to see Dre in the lineup with the ones. He's disruptive. and just naturally instinctive, which should surprise no one based on who his dad is. So, effort for the defense this week. Better test in this week ahead against a big physical Wisconsin team. I don't know that Wisconsin's great, but that's a Power 4 football team. So bigger tests ahead, but they pass this one with flying colors.
Yeah, first of all, London Simmons for me, different circumstances on how he ended up atop the depth chart, at least temporarily, but kind of been DJ Dell-esque in the sense of, Dell was like an in-state kid. He was a 4-star, but he wasn't a super highly rated guy. They had actually signed quite a few defensive linemen in that 2019 recruiting class, if I'm not mistaken, and he was at the bottom of the list. Yeah. Ended up being, pretty much not a full-time starter, but he started, I want to say, like 10 games that year as a freshman.
Game 1 even.
Yeah, and, ended up being a good player. I'm not saying from what they – I do think there are some similarities, like as far as being more of the run-stuffing type. They're not going to be super disruptive as pass rushers or anything like that, but they're obviously not the same players necessarily. But just it kind of in that sense of this is a guy who probably, for me – what's more impressive, and I don't remember Dale, maybe he was a summer enrollee too, but just London Simmons doing it in a short amount of time, very, very impressive in my opinion. And I think he'll continue to be a guy who just gets better. You don't want to lose Jeremiah Beaman for the year. The depth has gotten a lot more shallow, as a result of that. But I think London Simmons and the fact that he was already generating buzz before any injuries happened to anybody else, and he ended up playing a bigger role than I think any of us were expecting with Tim Keenan out last week against week 1 against Florida State. And then he ends up being pressed into a starting role in week 2. I think him, kind of taking a step back and becoming that rotational piece that knows with Tim, I think they actually can get by. I still have got to watch the defense late in the game. I'm about, I think, midway through the third quarter right now, maybe a little past the midway point, but I've watched the offense. And I've watched, pretty much all the starters on defense from Saturday, but I really would like to see Steve Mbumwa and how he performed. I know there were some things that I noticed live. A lot of people were talking about him after the game, rightfully so. I noticed some of that as well. I haven't gone back to study everything, though. So, maybe I come back and he flashed. He did some really good things, but he also was really raw and he made some mistakes. This is probably something that we'll have to talk about on Wednesday's show, but it would be nice if he continued to kind of progress and could get into that mix where at least it's like, okay, if you had to go to him, I don't think it's the end of the world. It's not crippling. That would really help the depth. So, the defensive line looked good, I thought, against Louisiana-Monroe.
Oh, absolutely. And again, a solid showing for the depth there, because you played quite a few of those defensive linemen. It wasn't just 60 minutes of James Smith and LT Overton and London Simmons. I like Keeley at the end. Keeley, I think, showed at the end kind of what the issue is, right? Because in terms of why doesn't Keon Keeley play? I can go over a list of things as to logically why it took him a long time to get out there. But now that he is out there, and I've said he's kind of ready to play, I'm kind of right. But I think it showed why he doesn't play. That is, Keon made plays out there. He only had a handful of snaps, but he was disruptive. And he made plays and he flashed and he showed exactly why he was a highly recruited player. He also missed 3 tackles. He was only out there for about 10 or 12 snaps. He missed, per PFF, 3 tackles, approximately 25% of the snaps he played. He missed 3. So I think with Keon Keeley, what you're seeing is all the ability in the world, clearly can be a good player. Still got to work on some things. Learning to play that position at this level. Again, this was a 235-pound high school player that grew into a 280-pound plus defensive lineman in college. He's learning a new position and button heads with 300-pound offensive linemen while doing it. He's going to be good. It just requires patience. But I thought, boy, the end of that game, there's Keon Keeley. That's why he's highly recruited, and that's why he's not playing with the ones.
Great point about Keeley, because, and I'll share this, LT Overton leads the team through 2 games with 4 pressures. The only other guys, there's 3 other players who have multiple, and that is Jan Zapier with 2, James Smith with 2, and Justin Jefferson with 2. Actually, I say that there is a 5th, and that 5th is Keon Keeley. He has 3, so he's actually second on the team right now with 3 pressures, only trailing LT Overton. He has played 17 snaps All of those other guys are somewhere between 52 and 71. So
real boom and bust there with that kid. I mean, you get the boom, you also get the bust. What they're trying to do is get all-time boom and kind of eliminate the bust. But he did, per PFF, who did, he missed 3 tackles. That's a lot for playing 17 snaps.
Yeah, I mean, and so, that's something that he's got to clean up. And that's what Kane Womack has mentioned. Hey, we just got to see it consistently. And he has worked hard. The ceiling is absolutely there. And I think his ceiling just continues to climb. Like when he does it at a high level. He is very, very impactful. But you can't
be a pro football player. I mean, I'll bet that right now. He's going to play in the NFL. It's just going to take to year 4, year 5 before he's truly ready to be a difference maker for an SEC football team, hopefully Alabama.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. But LT Overton's he's still struggling to finish. Jordan Renaud played a little bit out of control. He did that last year. I think he's gotten better about that, but got to make sure that he's the gap integrity is there. But just overall, I thought the defense played a lot faster, a lot more confident, and regardless, hopefully it's just a confidence building performance moving forward. This weekend will tell us a little bit more. Georgia will certainly, a few weeks from now, it will tell us quite a bit. But the other thing that I wanted we did talk about Jeremy Bernard, but I just want to mention he continued to be a focal point, continued to do great things. He had a couple of plays called back due to penalty, so his day could have been even bigger than it was. Now, granted, only 3 catches for 67 yards, but 2 of those were for a touchdown. And when you're averaging 22.3 yards per catch, that's pretty solid. And it was all early, and then they started getting other guys involved, and so. You could just tell out the gate he kind of was the tone setter for Alabama offensively, and now that's over 200 yards through 2 games and 2 touchdowns, and that's something else for him I want to point out. In each of his previous 3 seasons, he had 2 total touchdowns for the year, and so in this one game, he matched that touchdown total. So hopefully he didn't go the rest of the season without a touchdown. Hopefully he can set a new career high, but it is very possible that he ends up not only outdoing that but shattering it. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he ended up bare minimum matching his career total in just this year alone, meaning had 6 coming in, could very easily see 7 or 8. He's not going to be a guy who probably goes for 15. He's not a J-Mo type or anything like that, but I do think he's going to be a guy who ends up having quite a bit of success and should score a lot more points than he has in years past. Jimmy, do you have anything else before we hop out of here, brother?
I'll just say so far, team MVP is either Jeremy Bernard or Parker Brailsford. I think they've been the 2 best players on the offense, maybe the 2 best players on the team so far in 2025.
I love it. I love it. And just, Alabama needs both. I mean, that's just, it's funny how that works, but really excited to see how they continue to progress. You got to feel better about where they're at right now versus where we thought they were a week ago. And, just like you can't take away a lot from this game, maybe as the season progresses, we realized you couldn't really take away a whole lot from that season opener either. But the one thing that I keep coming back to is the lack of effort and energy. And so that I don't care what happens, what goes wrong, that never needs to be an issue ever again. And if you got to put Dre Kirkpatrick out there on offense and defense to set the tone or get some guys going. Yeah. I mean, cause I loved playing with guys like that. It was damn near impossible not to have some energy around those kind of players, cause they're going to play 110 miles an hour all the time. And it's fun to watch, even if they get themselves thrown out of the game. I don't care. Catch a charge for all I care. I mean, just keep hitting how you're hitting, man. But yeah, very fun player. Not unexpected considering who his dad was. Phenomenal player for Alabama. So overall, good performance. Wednesday, we'll be back. We'll be talking Alabama, Wisconsin, breaking things down, diving into the weeds. Appreciate you hopping on here with me. I'm looking forward to making this a regular thing, and I hope that the listeners are too. If you enjoyed today's episode, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment letting Jimmy know just how important he is to us. We very much appreciate him and appreciate all you guys too. We'll talk to you guys soon.
I may not suit up on Saturdays anymore, but I'm still in the game.
Let's roll.
In here, I call the plays, make adjustments, and lay it on the line. Want to feel that fire? That rush, then you've got to get in the game. I used to say it in the tunnel, and I still say it now. Let's roll.